This is an oil thermostat. Simple little thing really. It's like absolutely tiny and yeah, it's gonna help cool my motor properly. So last week I started installing the oil cooler on my R32 and I got about 3/4 of the way through the project when I realized I really can't run it without an oil thermostat. So we had to stop there while this showed up in the mail. Now the reason we need this thing is absolutely dead simple. The oil cooler will make sure that the oil always stays at a nice cool temperature. We need this to go in between the two to make sure that the oil doesn't stay too cold, essentially. That's it, that's its whole job. Prevent the motor from being too cold. The way this thing works is actually pretty dead simple, honestly. If we took this and we cut it along there and then we folded it over, this is what it would look like. The oil comes in here. The path of least resistance is for it to pass straight through here and back into the motor. So when it's cold, that's exactly what it does. As the oil heats up here, it heats up the thermostat, which closes it, pushing the oil down now the least path of resistance down to the cooler and then back up this way. As the oil cools back down, as the overall temperature of the oil cools down, this will open and close as it needs to. So basically, it's a variable valve. Now, as well as the oil cooler, I also needed 2 of these guys, or 4 of these guys actually, to go on there. And then we have these guys to go on there, like that, so that we can mount our lines to our thermostat. Then our new lines that we made up last week, we actually have to cut down the middle and feed into either end of these. Let's chuck this sucker together. I'm thinking the best place for this to go is going to be here somewhere, like that. Now there's some plastic tags in here. There was one that I took out the other day and I found that there was a threaded hole behind it. Assuming it is the standard R32 engine bay thread, this should thread straight in. A little bit of binding because the hole's probably filled with gunk, but that will be how we mount this sucker in there. So we've got 2 cooler from source, so this will have to go in that way. Look at that, so tucked away you never notice it was there. Perfect. Next we've got to cut the lines from the oil sandwich plate to the thermostat. We'll jump in now and have a look. I'll grab a tape so I know where to mark it. Right there, which gives us a decent bit of room. Now before I lose this spot, I'm gonna get tape on it. Just before the king. Perfect. Clean, straight-ish cut. Could be better though. Cut was not the best. Woo-hoo. Ta-da! There are our 2 braided lines. One is slightly longer. That was totally deliberate. But we'll use that one for the bottom one because it actually has to bend around. Oh my god, this is actually just a There we go, our 2 lines running from our oil sandwich plate all the way out into our thermostat. All we've got to do is get 2 more straights, 2 of those things, put them on this side, and then I can make the hoses to run from there and onto the oil cooler. It took me probably, I want to say about 2.5 hours just to get those 2 ends on the oil sandwich plate. To put the 2 on the thermostat, it was like 10 minutes, if that. But yeah, that's all plumbed in on the thermostat side. Now all I've got to do is get those 2 straights on Monday or Tuesday and then put them in. Well, it's Wednesday now and I've got some fittings. So we're gonna make those lines up, chuck them on and finish this thing properly. All right, so I have to make a line that goes from here down along the rail and back up onto that. Got all the line I need right here. This is the -10 stuff that we're using. This is 200 series. So all I've got to do is cut it out and make it up. Let's get to it. Line's gonna go. It's gonna get a pretty tight radius for them to turn. I'm pretty happy with that. I might just put tape on that where it is so that I know it's good for it. All done. Now we can chuck them in. Hey, it's in properly. Alrighty, install's all done. Now all we've got to do is prime the oil into the new system, top up whatever we lost, and then check for leaks. So that's what we're going to do now. What I'm going to do is place clean cloths or mostly clean cloths underneath all the parts where I have had oil lines undone and or redone. And I'm going to hope that that will be a fair indicator of if I'm losing any oil when I start it or when I prime it even. Alrighty, going to prime it for a few seconds, and by that I mean I'm just going to turn the motor over without spark and without fuel so that the motor doesn't turn over, or start I mean, and then that'll push oil through, so it should prime the system, and then we'll check oil, make sure that we've got enough again. It's still reading above, so we're going to start it with that. Actually, I'll put a little bit more in there. All right, topped up oil. I'll prime once more and then we'll start, let it run for a bit. Not a single leak, we're all good. That's it, see you next week. I'm gonna get away from the flies.